And this is the beginning of Seichel. All right, we are going in circles a little bit. Okay? So we'll start inside now. We're on page Tzadik Daled, Ois Mem Aleph. And the introduction to this Maimer is in this short paragraph before it, which is actually all the Maimorim prior to this, explaining the difference between Chochmah and Bina. And in principle, so to speak, in a short presentation, Chochmah is toifes to the Etzem, which means Chochmah recognizes and relates to the Etzem, not the Seichel Dikinyan, but the essential truth. And he explained this long in the introduction on Friday. The essential truth means how it comes from the Creator himself, how it is in the Creator's mind. That's means the essential truth. And then it becomes Chochmah also becomes a Metzius, a presence in the world, and then it is possible to approach it from a worldly perspective and describe it on a Bina level, in a Bina manner. Once it's there, you can begin to look at it the way you see it from the world. But you should never misunderstand that you are seeing something which is super worldly, but you are translating it in your way, so that you can relate to it. Because Etzem, as we explained many times, the whole term of Etzem does not exist in the world. There's not in the world an aspect. The world is not an atzmi. The world has no real presence. Every aspect of the world is a creation. To the extent that it's yesh mei ayin, it doesn't even have a basis for being. It's there because God created it. And even after it's there, it cannot justify its being. Omnom, however, the word omnom actually, if we should to say it correctly, omnom means in truth, however. Adayin tzorich lehobi. There still remains that which needs to be explained. Bahaloi hachochma hi gamkin idiyas sichlis. Is it not that the chochma is also a idea sichlis, is also a secheldike knowledge?
Idea and Hoda, like we spoke about yesterday.
No, idea and Hoda is not the same thing. Idea means knowledge, and Hoda means admission. As we spoke yesterday, Hoda is an extremely sensitive, subtle thing. When Chassidus talks about the Hoda, he gives an example. K'moi, meide b'shamel b'zila, meide chacham Reb Meir. Meide chacham Reb Meir, it's an expression in the Gemara. Chacham were meide to Reb Meir. So how is that explained, what Hoda is? Why is meide chacham Reb Meir is an illustration, is an explanation of the principle of Hoda. As we explained yesterday, because Hoda means I accept what you say, not what makes sense to me. Chacham means Chacham have a completely different way of explaining this thing. But Moedel Meir, they accept what Meir says. It remains an accepted view.
What's their basis for accepting if they have no understanding of it?
After a whole long discussion and so forth, they recognize Reb Meir is right in the overall scheme of things.
That's not understanding it?
Not
It's
on
not
this
understanding.
subject, not on this subject.
What?
They're not chmoid on that subject. What
They made that subject, but in that subject there was a whole long debate. We can't even imagine what the debate was going on, but they find a Moed Chacham Reb Meir. Afterwards, it's not. They say, okay, we understand what you say. No, moide hacham meir, because you say it. That's why it becomes real to us. It is not real to us because we understand it. Now, what you did not convince us. You did not make us understand it, but we see that you're right. That's what the exam is.
I'm just trying to understand, because it was said because they had a debate and they discussed the matter. It's not because they had.
After all the discussion and all the explanations, all that, it remains something that Chacham made it to Reb Meir. It was not something that they understand on their own. That's what the Gemara
They
says.
still didn't understand, and but they gave in.
They understand. That's it. No, they recognize there is something that you see that we cannot see. They made it. That's what the say this brings down. That's an explanation of Haidah. Why is it an explanation of Haidah?
So Poil they mevatel their dies.
So
The Poil they are mevatel their opinion.
they made it, yeah, but it doesn't become their opinion. It doesn't become an idea sichlis. They accept it. It's not an idea sichlis. Chochmah has an aspect of sichli. Haidah does not have a sichli aspect.
Why do you need to learn it that way? Why can't you
What?
say? Why do you need to learn it that manner?
I'm pointing out. Chassidus explains Haidah. He quotes from the Gemara. Kigoin, Moed Chacham Reb Meir. They recognize what Reb Meir explained to him. Finished. Why Moed Chacham Reb Meir? Why does Reb Meir have to participate in their Haidah? After the debate, now they see his way, his view. Because even after the debate, it remains Reb Meir's opinion, not theirs. And they made it to it.
It's like if I would open up a Kiva Eiger, and I don't understand, but whatever he says, this is the.
Well, we pointed out yesterday,
Yeah.
This is why, when you learn, you're supposed to be medayik in every nuance word. Because then you learn from the Rebbe, not the way you think it should be. It's a common approach. I learn two words. I know what the Rebbe means to say. No, that's not what you're learning. You're learning what the Rebbe says to you, not what he means to say.
Because I'm numb.
Okay, Omnam. In truth, however, Adayan Tzorech L'Homi. This still remains something that needs to be explained. You need to understand. What is it? V'haloi ha'chochma hi gam ken yediyah sichlis. Is it not that the chochma is also a yediyah sichlis, a seichalik knowledge? Because the way we explained, it's only come out clear here. V'al kol ponim, at the minimum. Al kol ponim means however you're going to explain chochma, there is an element in chochma, b'madrigas and tachtenis shebechokma, and the lower madrigas of chochma. There it is idea sichlis. We'll discuss the principle of idea sichlis in a moment. K'moi, what is the in Australia, what would we refer to when we say madrigas and tachtenis shebechokma? The lower madrigas of chochma. K'moi as nekudos hahaskola. Nekudas hahaskola. The nekuda of conceptualization. We are used to always refer to Nukudas and Haskalah as the highest element in Seichel, in Chochmah. But in this approach, when the Rebbe explained the Chochmah takes it etzem, Nukudas and Haskalah, this is the lower elements in Chochmah. This is when Chochmah becomes known in your Seichel. Because in essence, Chochmah is not knowable. It's an etzem. Etzem is not knowable. let's go one more line and we'll discuss it.
A scala is grasping, right?
What?
A scala.
Let's call it conceptualization. We'll come back. The bederach klal zel beginnes Yisoid Abba. As Nikuta is Yisoid Abba. Yisoid Abba means the lowest level in Abba that comes forth and expresses itself. Arei ze yediyas sichlis. This is a sechelic knowledge, the nikra sechel gol, and it is actually described as, referred to as sechel gol, an open and revealed sechel. Although it's only nekudas and sechel, but it's already sechel gol. There is much to be said about nekudas haskol, but this is not the place where this is discussed. Just to point out that nekudas haskol, this is part of chokhmah, the lower part of chokhmah, and it is also already a seichel dekinyan. Let us. What's the date? When is timing?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. It's 9:30.
No, it's 8.
What,
10 o'clock.
what time is Kriya Shema?
9:05.
What?
9:05 is Kriya.
Kriya Shema is 9:05.
The new time.
Yeah.
Take it in English. Yeah. If she is discussing the Nekudas haskol, it presents it in the following way. A person labors in a seichel, literally. He delves deeper and deeper and deeper, trying to get the seichel to himself in his mind. And then ultimately, when it comes to him, it comes in a form of a borag hamavrik, of just a spark, a twinkling spark, which means he does not yet fully grasp it, but he says, I see what that is. And the word I see is the correct way to put it, because he does not yet grasp it, he does not yet know what he sees, but he sees it. He sees it makes sense. I see. So I want to, at this point, since we had all that introduction, what was he laboring on all this time before the Nekudas haskol came?
Are you saying the Baruch HaMavrik is in the Nekudas haskol?
Yeah.
Are the two Nekudas haskolos? The first Baruch HaMavrik and then the Nekuda after.
Nekuda what?
After he understood it.
Then he refers to the Nekuda. But the initial understanding of it is in the form of Borag HaMavrik. Then he elaborates on, we'll see, the Bina takes it apart. But essentially, Nekudas haskol is, yes, Nekudas haskol remains with him, but it's in the brightness is at the point of Borag HaMavrik. What is in this Borag HaMavrik? What is this about? And again, what was he laboring in that ultimately got him to Nekudas haskol?
Did they have one in the pedal?
So for this we have to recognize, despite the fact that we have seichel, and seichel, so to speak, reigns supreme, this is our highest koyach. But in fact, seichel, as the Rebbe says, is the lowest koyach of the nefesh, in terms of bringing the nefesh out. Madrigas at tachtenis. Because seichel means I know the truth, but I know it outside of the truth. Like I said before, there is a higher madrig in the Chochmah, it's called Heidah. Heidah means I know the truth, not at all because I know it, but because there is the truth. That's a completely different connection than I know it. Heidah means I'm totally uninvolved in this knowledge. It's being presented to me. Let us take a very simple.
Is it correct as like I trust you? Is this the
No, there's no seichel to it. Trust you is a seichel. There's no seichel to it. I'm going to explain very simple in our way of explaining things. Okay. We said many times, a home is a home that belongs to a human being. So when you come into a home and you see it's all laid out for a proper dwelling, you know that a human being lives there. That's a seichel knowledge. Even though as you enter, in the first glance you say, "Oh, I see this is a human dwelling." There's no, it's obvious. So like Re'iyah the Chochmah. Nonetheless, it is something that comes to your attention, comes to your knowledge. Now, take this same scenario with a little difference. You come to the home, and the person who lives there, who owns the home, is there. And there is a completely different awareness. When you confront the owner of the home, in the home, you don't find out that somebody lives there. You do not even have a home without him, his presence. There's nothing to talk about. His presence is what makes the home into a home. That's a completely different knowledge. This knowledge is not a chokhmah knowledge. This knowledge is a heidah level. This is your home. Oh yeah, this is your home. We have to understand the phenomenal inyan, the depth and the purity of heidah. The background for heidah is
when you meet the person, say that the hadar is that this home is.
One second. I said the background of heidah is everything that exists in the world, as we said already many times. If you own the home, it's because God created the world in such a way that you can own it. You don't own it the way the world interprets. I got it first. I came here first. I paid money for it, whatever, I fought for it. This is not what owning a home means. Owning a home is a right that the Rebbe gives you. That's owning a home. This is what true ownership comes from. Ownership precedes the fact of ownership. Ownership precedes ownership. The Rebbe says, go ahead and how do we own it? What is the means of koina a piece of real estate, halachically? Anybody know?
Use it in a way.
close the lock?
Open the door and close the door. What did you do? You go into a field and you give a little dig. You're going in the field. Because the whole phenomenon is that which is provided by the creator of the world. He is holding it for you. And he's telling you, give a dig. And it's going to be yours. This is much deeper than the Pram of Chochmah. This level of awareness, which is inherent in every normal human being, whose mind was not contaminated, Rahman Islam, this is what he labors in to bring it out into Chochmah idea. To know what it is. What in fact does it mean to own a piece of property? How does it, how do you translate that? Piece of property remains always in its place. I can take it in my pocket. I can carry it with me. And karka ein nigzelos. I know it's going to be mine no matter what happens. How do you interpret it? You can't avoid them. This is Indian from Haidor. The Rebbe is holding it for me. You have something to say? No. So when he labors in this seichel, until the Nekudas HaSkola comes to him in the Boragam Avrik, he's laboring because he senses this truth. How does he come to sense this truth? And this is where the Rav and Talmud, you learn a Maimah from Rebbe, and you completely dedicate yourself to what the Rebbe is teaching you. You careful to evaluate every word and every nuance, and then you sense, oh, this is the Rebbe is saying something. What is Rebbe talking about? I don't know yet, but I know that he's talking about something. This something is what you delve into, and eventually you succeed with Nebish's help to break it open and let it shine through in a conscious mind. This is the Nekudas HaSkola. So you know it before you know it. You know it because it's true, not because you know it. How come you know it because it's true? Because you're part of that truth. So you know this truth.
You're part of that truth, that's why you know it's true. That's in Haidor, or that's in the higher levels of
That's Haidor. Like you come in, look, I said many times, this is so obvious if you just think about it. You look into the room from outside, through the window. You can see everything in the room, every last detail. You can understand how it was designed, how it was planned, and so forth. Then you step into the room. When you step into the room, the opposite happens. Then you can only see one side, only in one direction. You can't see the whole room. When you're outside, you can look around the whole thing. When you come inside, you can only see in one direction at a time. And yet, which way are you connected to the room? Do you know more about the room, on the inside or outside?
the inside.
On the inside. What kind of knowledge is this? This is the knowledge that this is a real room. It's a real human dwelling, and there is an owner to it, and you sense it right in your bones. This is the source of the Chochmah, so to speak, the Nekudas, higher than the Nekudas Kola. And then when you're inside, you begin to decipher it and say, oh, somebody owns this home. This is already in the Nekudas Kola. This is the Chochmah HaGluya.
Sounds like there's imprinted midas right there at the outset. You feel it in your bones.
It's right, you say midas. But it sounds like midas, but it is not. Please think about it. Midas is that which you feel because it affects you.
Mm.
This is a knowledge that's not because it affects you, but because you know because it's a truth.
You feel it because it's true. Yeah.
But ultimately, Chochma, which Chochma? This is the Nekudas HaSkola, the Chochma HaGluya, when Chochma finally protrudes out and becomes an awareness of Chochma. This is an Indiya Sichlis. What meant Indiya Sichlis? Conscious knowledge must have some kind of a justification element. It has to make sense. Like we said, first God created light in the first day. Oil before there was no luminary. That light cannot make sense. There's no luminary in the world. It cannot make sense, and this is why it and the world cannot coexist. Oh, but it's light. I see it. It's day. But it doesn't fit into having a worldly experience with it. That's why it had to be concealed. And what was the remedy for it? It wasn't taken away. A luminary was put in place, so now you can justify its presence. It has a source. By the way, when I'm telling you about the source, this is Mamash Ramban in Chumash.
Ramban.
Ramban. There's a Pirush on the whole Chumash, Ramban.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a dia sichlis. Sichlis means it has place in the world. You can make sense of it.
Even Chochmah has this criteria, prerequisite of making sense of
That's
it.
right. Chochmah Hagluya.
Uh,
In order for it to be known, Begolu it has to make sense.
right. Masha can by Hoda outside the gather of
No,
making.
Hoidah remains in the purview of the owner of the Hoidah, of the source. Meidim Chacham Reb Meir, Zamasha, the Chassidus explained, Hadoy Meidim Chacham Reb Meir. Why you have to say Chacham Reb Meir? Chacham recognized and changed their mind and accepted the Meir's arguments. No, Meidim Chacham Reb Meir. This is how Chassidus explained the word Hoidah.
This is Hadah on the level of the higher level of Chokhmah.
It's about Chochmah. If it's for Chochmah, you wouldn't understand. You wouldn't have to say Hoidah.
No, but were they modded to his higher level of Chokhmah?
They were they don't know where it's coming. They're more to what he said. Where he got it from, I don't know. If I knew, I would have it myself.
But on the level, the high level of Chokhmah, we don't know where it's coming from.
I don't know. That's right. It's not Seichel.
That's what I'm asking you. Whether
Please, do you know what you want to ask? What you're trying to know? What's the problem?
we established that it's not their opinion.
That's right.
So if
Whose
they,
opinion is? It's Reb Meir. And they submit to his opinion. And it remains always his opinion.
and we were explaining that there is a level of Chokhmah before the level of revealed Chokhmah. A higher level of Chokhmah before it's revealed, before it's on the level of
Okay.
idea.
The higher level of Chochmah is really called Hoidah. Because it's not Sichli.
That was it. That's my
Yeah. Okay. Wow. It's the idea sichlis, which means it has a seichelige basis. I'd like to demonstrate the principle, which we did in the past also. Re'iyah, sight, is a replica of the of Chochmah. Chochmah is a nefesh sight, and there's physical sight. I don't know if you would recognize this. All sight per se, the reason we can relate to sight is because we see the sky. Everything is within that overall reality. We cannot see outside of that reality. Because of this reality, everything becomes visible and we can relate to it. What is the sky? The sky is Shemayim, which is what encompasses the whole world. Now, this encompassing of the whole world, we said many times, the sky is a vast spread. Do we perceive the sky as a vast spread or as a reality? The sky is just one entity. This entity is that which encompasses the world, not because of its size, but because it encompasses the world. The world, so to speak, belongs into it. That's Shamayim was ordered. Before the Rebbe created the order, he created a container for the earth. That's the Shamayim. So here we have these two levels. On the one hand, when I look at the Shemayim, it says, oh, it's vast. I can see it here, I can see it here, I can see it in every direction. I see it. It's vast. But I don't relate to it as being a vast entity. My initial relationship to it, it's just a reality all over the place, because it's real, not because